Chum den dem gombo jahora yang la jang za lo gang ge lo zhu dem nie zheng zhe nie de nan da ra ze jin nie dong ge zhi zhang zhi zhi re nie ji de ge ra la wo gang da zhi bi zhuo ma ru men do de wo re ji ze ri zhuo zhuo gen la wo ji da zhi ya le zhi jie yang de ri de re jie zhuo niu mo niu lo li jie zhao dong zhong za jiang ma ru ma ze de wo re今年正在拉正东多年大家杂金大作用的也这都我知道这年将这老龙们让我让要懒得的乌马拉巴扎那的乌马拉巴扎那的乌马拉巴扎那的乌马拉巴扎那的乌马拉巴扎那的乌马拉巴扎那的乌马拉巴扎Umara baza nardo mara 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 baza Umara baza nardo 最终基金接着我这儿接道路的门把了是挂当当就让路都把路主不必那话记得说了娘接肩膀做的了你没想让你马路肩膀我家把个了大个咱都什么都把都接着了上za路各位法师各位佛友大家下午好
Good evening everyone
我们现在准备讲今天的课
We are going to begin now with tonight's teaching
然后我们上课之前请大家发菩提心
Before we begin with the teaching everybody please make an aspiration of bodhicitta
菩提心我们昨天也已经讲过了那么菩提心就是简单的说我们为了度化一切众生为了让天下所有的众生成佛解脱为了达到这个目标发心成佛这个发心叫做菩提心
So yesterday as we explained bodhicitta is the aspiration to attain Buddhahood in order to assist all beings themselves in achieving liberation and attaining Buddhahood.
好，发了菩提心以后呢，我们开始讲今天的课。我们今天的课也是自利利他，如何自利利他的方法。
So after we have all made this aspiration, we will go on with tonight's teaching. The topic of tonight's teaching again is how to go about benefiting both self and other.
那我们昨天讲过了，在现实生活当中，或者是我们的修行当中大家尽量的断除伤害众生的事情，然后尽量的利益众生这一点对一个学大乘佛教的人来说是非常非常重要的。
So yesterday as we mentioned, whether in terms of our everyday life or in our practice, we should do our best to abandon behavior or conduct that causes harm to other beings and at the same time, as far as possible, engage in action that benefits other beings. Both of these are extremely important in terms of Mahayana practice.
我们要自利利他，这样子的话，前提的条件 就是慈悲心和菩提心。如果我们没有菩提心的话，就是没有办法自利，也没有办法利他，所以自利利他，需要自利利他，那就必须要有慈悲心的基础，菩提心的基础。
In terms of benefiting both self and other, the necessary precondition is having compassion, bodhicitta. Without bodhicitta, it's not possible to benefit self and other. So in order for us to be able to do this, it's necessary that we generate a foundation in compassion and bodhicitta.
如果有菩提心的话，我们可以自利，从此以后我们的人生真的是非常有意义。
Once we've generated bodhicitta, then we're certainly able to benefit ourselves. From this point onwards, our lives will be extremely meaningful.
然后呢，不仅仅使自己的人生成为非常有意义，而且自从有了菩提心以后呢，我们也可以帮助和利益很多很多的众生。
And it's not just one's own life that becomes extremely meaningful from this point onwards. At the same time, one is able to help and benefit many other beings.
我们昨天也讲过这个事情我们学佛学大乘佛教必须要从菩提心开始，我们每一天我们的日常的修行当中必须要有一个菩提心的修法。
So yesterday, as we learned as students of the Mahayana path, it's necessary that we start with bodhicitta. Every day, our practice should include some bodhicitta cultivation practice.
另外一个自利利他的方法，就是要证悟心，我们自己的内心的本心。要证悟空心证悟有这个证悟的智慧以后呢，然后我们把之前的菩提心和这个证悟空心的智慧结合双运，这样子以后呢，这就是就成为大乘佛教的核心。
Another way that we can benefit self and other is to realize our self-nature or realize emptiness. And once we have done this, we will be able to combine the wisdom of emptiness with compassion. And this will form the core of the Mahayana teachings.
证悟了空心证悟了我们自己的内心的本心以后，也就是就像菩提心一样，也可以自利，也可以更好的自利和利他。
So once we realize our self-nature or realize emptiness, then just as with bodhicitta, from this point on we're able to benefit ourselves, and even more so are we able to benefit others.
那我们要证悟什么呢？证悟我们自己的内心的本心，就是证悟我们自己的心的本心这叫做证悟。
So when we talk about realizing our self-nature, we're really talking about realizing the basic nature of mind. This is what we mean when we talk about realization.
要证悟，那我们要从两种佛心开始讲。佛心就有两种佛心，我们今天给大家介绍这个两种佛心。
So in terms of realizing emptiness, we're going to start with understanding two kinds of Buddha nature.
那两种佛心啊，第一个佛心就叫做自然主佛心啊。自然主的意思是什么呢？自然就是说我们的心的本性天生啊，自然就是光明的纯洁的，也就是说我们的心的本性它本来就是佛的智慧，所以叫做自然主啊。主是什么意思呢？主就是我们的心的本性啊，我们的内心当中有佛，佛实际上永远都在我们的心中，佛永远都住在我们的心中，所以呢叫做自然主啊，自然主佛心。
So the first type of Buddha nature that we are going to be looking at is described as naturally present Buddha nature, or naturally present potential. So the natural state of our mind is luminous and pure. It is the state of Buddha's wisdom. We can say that, in fact, the Buddha resides eternally in our mind. So this is what we mean when we refer to this naturally present Buddha nature.
这个自然主佛心是我们每一个人每一个众生的心的本性都是一样的。我们每一个众生的心的表面的现象是有所不同有各种各样的情绪，有各种各样的心态都有的。但是呢，所有的众生的心的本性就没有不同的，都是一样这个心的本性就叫做佛心。
Every person, indeed every being, has the same basic nature, even though their minds, the superficial appearances of mind may be different. People have different moods, attitudes, etc. However, in terms of the basic nature of mind, everyone is exactly the same. This basic nature is Buddha nature.
真悟的意思就是说我们感觉到自己的心的本性我们感觉到感悟体悟到我们的心的本性这个叫做真悟。
So when we talk about realization or enlightenment or awakening, what we're really talking about is experiencing the basic nature of one's own mind.
那我们的心的本性平时我们都不知道的为什么不知道？在现实生活当中我们根本就感觉不到这个我们的心的本性。我们在现实生活当中所感觉到的这个内心是我们内心的最表面的这个现象，这是最外表最表面的现象，它的最深的地方，它的最深处我们从来都没有接触过这个我们没有智慧的话，就一般我们接触不到这个本性。
The basic nature of our mind is something that we don't know about. In our everyday lives, it's not something that we have experience of. That which we regard as our inner mind, in fact, is actually the outermost or most superficial level or layer of our mind. In terms of our mind's deepest recesses, these are something that we have never encountered before. In general, when we lack wisdom, it's not possible for us to encounter these deepest recesses of our mind.
在这个问题上心的本性的这个问题上，汉传佛教的禅宗 还有藏传佛教的噶举派的大手印，还有藏传佛教的宁玛派的大圆满，这3个的内容完全是一致的。
In terms of the basic nature of mind, the Chan school in Chinese Buddhism, as well as the Mahamudra tradition in the Kagyu school and the Dzogchen tradition in the Nyingma school, are consistent in their understandings.
禅宗的六祖慧能大师证悟了他证悟的是什么呢？证悟的就是心的本性，他证悟了他自己的心的本性所以后来就是禅宗就是他就成为六祖，他这个时候他证悟的东西呢，不是别的，就是自己的心的本性。
The sixth patriarch of the Chan school, Huineng, became enlightened or awakened or realized. And what it was that he realized was the basic nature of his mind. And in doing so, he became the sixth patriarch. However, in realizing, he realized nothing other than this, the basic nature of mind.
然后噶举派的这个大手印当中有一个叫做恒河大手印恒河大手印它从文字的角度讲不多不是很多的文字，但是呢它的内容是非常非常深，非常的深刻讲得非常非常好。它讲的什么呢？就讲的跟禅宗的这个空性描述的都是一样的。
And in the Kagyu tradition, the tradition of Mahamudra, there is a tradition known as the Henghe Mahamudra. In this tradition, the number of words, or rather it's not a very textual tradition, the words are relatively concise and few, and yet the depth of these teachings is very profound. And the explanation or understanding of emptiness in this tradition is entirely consistent with the Chan understanding.
然后这两个跟这个尼玛派的大圆满里面讲的心的本性也是完全是一样，而且这个禅宗还有这个大手印大圆满他们的证悟的方法，很多时候在很多的层面上也是非常非常的相似。
And the understanding of the basic nature of mind in the Dzogchen tradition of the Nyingma school is consistent with the understandings of both the Chan and Mahamudra understandings. And in many respects, the methods of each of these traditions for realizing the nature of mind are very similar.
物质世界我们不了解，我们过去物质世界它到底是它的结构，它到底是什么，我们都不了解我们在日常生活当中所接触到的物质，比如说我们眼睛看到的，我们耳朵听到的，我们的手可以摸的，接触到的这些物质都是一个它根本就不是物质的本质，而是物质的本质当中所产生的另外一个不真实的东西。所以呢，我们在日常生活当中，实际上我们根本就没有接触到物质的本质。
In terms of the world of matter around us, it's not something that we understand. We don't understand its basic structure. In our everyday lives, in terms of the material or matter that we encounter, for example, the things that we see with our eyes, the sounds we hear with our ears, that which we touch with our hands, all of these things are not, when we encounter these the material world in this way, we're not encountering the essence of the matter itself. What we are encountering or perceiving, in fact, is just an illusion created amid the basic essence of this material. So in terms of our everyday life, it's not possible for us to perceive the basic essence or nature of matter.
物质如果它有一个本质，它如果有一个本质的话，那就是应该是微观世界里面的这些最小的这些粒子，应该是它的本质。然后我们在宏观世界当中所看到的、所接触到的这些，它根本就不是物质的本质，它是物质的本质以外的一种我们自己的感官所创造出来的一个世界，所以我们实际上连物质我们都不知道它的本质是什么样子。
So if there were an essence of matter, if matter in fact had a basic essence, presumably it would be found at the level of the microcosm, that is, in the most smallest units of matter possible, in very small particles. In terms of the macrocosm, everything that we experience in the macrocosm is not the basic essence of matter. It is something beyond or besides this. It is essentially an illusion created by our senses. So therefore, therefore we have no understanding, in fact, of the basic essence of matter.
比如说原子、电子、暗物质，还有电磁波、X 光之类的东西都是物质，但是呢，我们以前根本就不知道物质当中有这样子的物质，我们以为物质就是我们现在所看到的这些，除了这些以外呢，我们还没有想到物质有这么多的我们从来不知道的物质。
Things like molecules, atoms, electrons, X-rays, light waves, etc. These are all forms of matter. However, in times gone past, we didn't know that these types of matter existed. We only believed that matter was that which we could see and perceive with our own eyes. We didn't appreciate that there were so many other forms of matter besides this.
同样的我们更加的不了解我们的精神世界更加的不了解西方科学、心理学、哲学到目前为止还没有一个非常非常确定的对我们的内心的定义。
And even more than our lack of understanding of the material world, we have an even more lacking understanding of our minds. In terms of Western science, psychology, philosophy, etc., so far none of these disciplines have a proper definition of mind.
有些人觉得我们的内心就是大脑，有些人觉得是大脑的产物等等就有很多很多的不同的说法，但是呢，到目前还没有一个大家都认同的统一的标准的定义。
Some scientists view the mind as the brain, some view the mind as a function of the brain. There are many different opinions on this. However, so far, no one has come up with an explanation that has received wide consensus.
所以学术界也到目前为止还不是很了解我们的心是什么样子，尤其是不了解我们的心的本质，或者是我们的心的最深处是什么样子都不了解。
So academic disciplines to this point don't have a very good understanding of the mind, especially the academic disciplines don't have a good understanding of the fundamental nature or the deepest level of mind.
然后我们每一个人在现实生活当中呢，从个人的经验来说，也不知道这个我们的内心世界它到底是什么样子然后我们更加的不了解它的最深处它的真正的面目，就像禅宗讲的，它的本来的面目是什么样子，我们一无所知。
And as for ourselves in our everyday lives, in terms of our personal experience, we also don't understand our minds, much less the deepest layers of our minds, what is sometimes called the original face of our mind.
因为我们不了解我们的心的本性是什么样子，所以就是在这个当中就产生了很多很多的烦恼很多的这个无明无明就是无知愚昧就是因为愚昧，就是因为我们不了解这个物质世界和精神世界的本质，所以我们有对这个世界对我们的内心有很多很多的误解，然后这些误解给我们带来了特别特别多的烦恼，也就是我们现实生活当中经常解决不了的这些烦恼，就是因为我们不了解我们的内心的本质所导致所产生的。
And it's because we don't understand our minds that we experience a great deal of suffering. We experience great ignorance, or what we could otherwise call as foolishness. And this suffering and this ignorance comes about precisely because we don't understand the nature of the external material world, and we don't understand the basic nature of our minds. And given this to be the case, we have a lot of misunderstandings, mistaken understandings about both of these things. This results in a great deal of suffering. And so many of the kinds of suffering that we experience in our everyday lives that we regularly can't properly solve comes about due to a lack of understanding in these regards.
这一生当中我们需要学习的需要了解的可以了解的可以学习的很多，非常非常的多但是这些知识我们知道了以后，我们学会了以后呢，实际上也就是只能解决一些我们的眼前的一些问题，那很多的这些本质上的很多的，比如说像生老病死，还有我们很多的烦恼这些知识解决不了，所以我们要了解我们的心的本性，这就是我们这一生当中最重要的最重要的。我们可以学很多其他的，但是呢不能不学不能不学习我们的心的本质是什么样子。然后我们可以知道很多很多的知识但是呢我们有很多的知识我们知道不知道都没问题，但是不能不知道我们的心的本性是什么，因为 心的本心的这个知道和不知道，明白和不明白，就决定我们轮回或者是涅槃，或者是解脱。
There is a lot that we can potentially study in the course of our lives. And much of this knowledge, after we master it, however, is only able to assist us in solving short-term problems. This kind of various kinds of worldly knowledge is not able to help us in solving or transcending the sufferings of cyclic existence. So, in actual fact, understanding the basic nature of mind is the most important kind of knowledge for us to develop. Certainly we can study many other things, but ultimately the one thing that we can't afford not to learn or not to understand is the basic nature of our mind. The reason being that whether the difference between understanding this or not, or between learning this or not, is really the difference between liberation, nirvana, etc.
好，首先我们在理论上了解一下心的本性是什么，然后理论上了解了以后，知道了以后呢，然后我们再去修心打坐亲身体会自己的心的本性。那亲身体会的时候，这个叫做证悟。
So in terms of the basic nature of mind, this is something that we first need to understand theoretically. And after we understand it theoretically, then we go about internalizing this understanding in practice through meditation. And when we gain direct personal experiential understanding of the basic nature of mind, then this is what we refer to as realization or awakening or enlightenment.
心的本性我们可以分两种不同的心的本性，也就是我们今天讲的两种佛心。
So in terms of the basic nature of mind, it's possible to talk about this in two types. These two types are precisely the two kinds of Buddha nature that we're going to be talking about this evening.
那么今天我们要讲的这个两个佛心当中的第一个，就是我们刚才前面提到过的这个自然住。自然住就是因为我们的心的本性，它是我们的心的本性，我们的心存在的时候它就存在，所以它是自然的，它不是后天的，它不是人为的，它是我们的心的本性那这个另外一个名字就叫做如来藏叫做如来藏，也叫做佛心，这就是这个也叫做自然住佛心。
So the first kind of Buddha nature that we are going to talk about, as we mentioned, is that which we call naturally present Buddha nature or naturally residing Buddha nature. This, being the basic nature of our mind, is present so long as our minds exist. It's something that we intrinsically possess. It's not something that we acquire after the fact. This kind of naturally present nature of mind is also referred to as Buddha nature.
我们的心的本性是如来藏佛心那我们很多人觉得，那我们为什么感觉不到这个如来藏佛心的存在然后我们的心的本性既然是如来藏，那为什么我们的心又变成了这个佛心为什么又变成了贪嗔痴，有这么多的烦恼，有这么多的不清净的心 这个是为什么我们很多人不了解有疑问，这个方面有很多人不了解，也有很大的这个困扰。
So, if the basic nature of our minds is Buddha nature, then why is it that we don't see it, we don't experience it? Why is it, if the basic nature of our minds is Buddha nature, that we experience so much greed, anger, attachment, suffering, affliction, and impurity of the mind? This is something that many people find it difficult to understand and are quite troubled by this question.
我们的心和我们心的本性就像水和饼水是液体的，但是呢它在外面的这个因素，一些客观的因素，比如说它的温度零下的时候呢，它可以变成饼。当它是一块饼的时候呢，我们看不见液体，我们没有办法知道它是液体。但是呢，到有这个外面的温度上升的时候呢，然后饼就开始融化。这个时候我们知道这个不是金属，不是石头，不是别的东西，而是水这个时候我们发现它是水。
So our minds, or their basic nature, we can liken this to water and ice. So water is a liquid. This is something that everyone knows. However, under certain external conditions, such as when the temperature descends to below 0 degrees, then water becomes ice. And when it's in ice form, we can't see liquid. It's not possible for us to perceive the liquid nature of ice. However, when the temperature increases, the ice melts. And when this happens, we can see clearly that the ice is not made of metal or stone or some other kind of substance. We can see that its basic nature is water.
在中国哈尔滨有一个叫做冰雪大世节就是冬天的时候呢，有各种各样的冰的雕刻冰可以这个成为就像一个整个的城市一样，有冰的建筑物，有各种各样的东西可以雕刻然后呢外面看起来就是一个城市一样然后呢有各种各样五颜六色的灯光然后呢更加的漂亮，从外表看起来根本就不知道这是冰就像一个真正的建筑物，真正的城市一样。
In Harbin, in the northeast of China, there is every year an ice sculpture, an ice lantern festival. And during the time of this festival, an entire city virtually is constructed of ice. There are ice buildings, all kinds of objects fashioned from ice, and the entire vista appears just like a real city. There are different lights of every color, and it looks very beautiful. So when we look at it from outside, it doesn't appear to be made of ice. It seems to be, in fact, a real city.
这个冰雕这个是冰的时候呢，有各种各样的不同的，有些是建筑物有些是其他的东西，有各种各样不同的。但是呢，融化了以后呢所有都是变成了液体，都是水。这个时候呢，没有任何的区别，这个时候就是找不到任何的不一样，都是同样的水。
So these ice sculptures, when they exist in the form of ice, they take on different forms. There are houses, there are all kinds of different objects. However, when these sculptures melt, they all turn into liquid, they turn into water. And in this state, there is no difference between them whatsoever. It's not possible to locate any difference at all. Their basic essence is just water.
然后大摩主使的禅宗的著作和大受音大圆满这些所有的这些著作这些佛经里面呢，都用这个冰和水来做比喻。我们的心的本性就像水，我们的心现在就是因为有了无明因为有了无明，所以我们的心现在就是变成了就像冰块一样，它就变成了一个固体的东西一样。我们现在感觉不到佛的智慧，但是呢，它的本质是佛的智慧。
The texts, the writings of Bodhidharma, as well as the key writings, key texts of the Mahamudra tradition, alike use the metaphor of water and ice for to describe the mind. Essentially, water is likened to the basic essence of our minds, and ice is our minds as they currently are. Because of ignorance, our minds currently exist in the form of a block of ice, very solid. And in this state, it's not possible for them to experience Buddha wisdom, even though the wisdom of the Buddha is its basic nature.
然后周围的这个温度上升的时候，这些冰块逐渐的融化，最后变成水。那么还没有变成水的时候呢，这些冰有大有小，然后有些是长方形，有些是四方形，有各种各样的形状，也有各种各样的颜色。但是呢融化了以后呢，没有不一样的形状，也没有不一样的这个颜色所有都变成了同样的东西那我们现在我们的心就像冰一样，有烦恼，有各种各样的这个执着，有无明，有很多这样子的这个情绪。然后我们这外面的温度上升一样，我们通过一种方法把我们的心逐渐的融化为佛的智慧。那这样子的时候，最后我们的心都所有人的心都可以变成佛心如来藏。那佛心如来藏这个当中呢，就像冰变成了水以后没有不同的颜色和不同的形状一样，我们的心变成了如来藏佛心的时候呢，然后就没有不同的想法，没有不同的观点，没有不同的烦恼，所有的这些不同的东西最后全部融化为一个那一个是我们心的本性，就像这个蓝天一样，非常非常的纯洁这个里面没有任何的烦恼。最后我们的心最后我们要达到这个境界。
When the surrounding temperature increases, these various ice objects melt, and when they melt, they become water. However, before they have melted into water, they exist in different sizes. There are big objects, small objects. They come in different shapes. Some are rectangles, some are squares. There are different colors. However, when they melt, there is no longer any difference or distinction between them at all. They have melted to become exactly the same. So, when our minds exist in the form of ice, they have all kinds of afflictions, ignorance, attachment, negative emotions, etc. However, just like increasing the external temperature, we can apply methods to melt our minds until they become reduced to the state of Buddha wisdom. And everyone's mind can become this state of Buddha nature. And Buddha nature, just like when ice melts to become water, there is no distinction or difference in this state. There's no different color, there's no distinction in form. So we can say that the state of Buddha nature is one where no differences in thoughts or opinions or afflictive thoughts and emotions exist at all. All of these melt into one nature, our basic nature. So it's just like the blue sky. It's extremely pure. It's not afflicted by anything at all. And this is the state that we ultimately need to achieve.
般若波罗蜜多，般若释颂般若释颂就是释迦牟尼佛亲口讲的一个般若经里面讲的是空心。这个般若释颂里面讲我们的心的本性就像虚空蓝天一样，非常的纯洁。意思就是说，我们的心的本性当中就是没有任何的这些烦恼，所有的烦恼，所有的情绪都在这个我们的内心的表面的这个层面上。如果我们有一天能够突破这个表面的层面然后能够进入到它的这个最深的层面，这样子的话，那我们就会发现我们的心的本性真的是没有烦恼的，这些所有的烦恼都不是来自于我们的心的本性，而都是一个表面的现象。如果我们能够进入这个它的最深处，这样子的话，我们可以感受到它的本质，然后我们感受到它的本质的时候呢，然后我们会发现所有的这些烦恼都可以跟我们的心的本性是可以分离本质上这些都是不存在的，它们都是因为各种各样的原因突然间冒出来的东西，比如说天空当中这个有弥漫了乌云的时候，这个乌云它不是虚空的本质，不是蓝天的本质，它是突然间产生的。
So in the Prajnaparamita Sutra in 10 verses, the Buddha Shakyamuni likens the nature of mind to the blue sky, empty and pure like the blue sky. And in this basic nature of mind, there is no suffering. In fact, all of our suffering, our negative thoughts and emotions, etc., exists in the outer or superficial layers of our mind. And if we're able to go beyond these outer layers and access, in fact, the deepest level of our mind, then we will discover that our basic nature, in fact, is one of no suffering, and that our suffering is only a superficial phenomenon. So if we're able to access the deepest level of our minds, then we have a chance to experience the basic essence of our mind. And in so doing, we will realize that our afflictions, our suffering, etc., can be separated from the basic essence of our mind. We can discover that in actual fact, our suffering, our afflictive thoughts, etc., don't exist. All they are a phenomenon that temporarily arise due to various causes and conditions.
然后很多的佛经里面讲我们的心的本性是光明的永恒的那光明是什么意思呢？跟我们的这个光我们眼睛可以看到的可见光，然后我们的眼睛看不到的不可见光这些光根本就没有关系的佛经里面虽然讲我们的心的本性是光明，但是跟这些光是没有任何的关系那为什么叫做光明呢？就是说因为光它就是一个比喻，比如说光明任何地方有光明，那这地方是不会有黑暗凡是有光明的地方不会有黑暗这两个永远都不会在一起。同样的，我们的心的本性是没有烦恼的没有这些污垢，没有这些污染，它是一个非常纯洁自然的本质，它是纯洁的，所以叫做光明。这个光明并不是光明就是代表纯洁，它的纯洁没有烦恼，它没有执着所以叫做光明。
In the Buddhist scriptures, the mind is also frequently described as luminous in nature. And this word luminous doesn't carry the same meaning that we usually understand it to have, that is, of or related to light, such as the light we can see with our eyes, visible light, the light spectrum that we're not able to see with our human eyesight. There is no connection basically to light in this conventional sense. In actual fact, this idea of luminosity is a metaphor that is used for the reason that any place where there is luminosity, there will be no darkness. Darkness and luminosity can never coexist together. So similarly, the basic nature of our mind is one that is free of defilements, it's free of impurities. It's a state of extreme purity, and therefore we call it luminous. So this word luminous is really representing purity, a state with no suffering and no attachment.
如果我们真悟了这个心的本性，那么我们这个时候会发现所有的烦恼都从这个光明当中产生，然后最后也就在这个光明当中消失它的生住灭都离不开这个光明，它永远都是光明。但是呢我们自己没有发现我们没有发现它是光明。为什么我们没有发现呢？因为我们了解到的，我们感受到的，我们接触到的我们的内心的世界永远都是表面的现象，我们永远都看不见它的最深的地方，所以呢我们没有感觉到它的本性是光明。
If we are able to realize the basic nature of mind, we'll discover that it is free from all suffering. We will discover that all suffering indeed arises from this luminosity and also dissolves back into this luminosity. The arising, abiding and ceasing of all of our thoughts and suffering thoughts is has never been apart from this state of luminosity. However, this is not something that we have ever realized. It's not something we've ever understood. The reason being that our experience of mind is very superficial. We never experience or see its deepest levels.
我们的心的本心在弦中弦中里面呢，就叫做般若波罗蜜多。般若波罗蜜多是我们的心的本心，然后同时也叫做佛心、如来藏。然后在密法里面呢，密宗里面呢，就叫做自然的坛称自然的坛称。自然的坛称实际上指的是我们的心的本心本心叫做坛称，所以有些时候呢，叫做在密法里面就叫做自然的坛称。还有显宗、密宗，所有的大乘佛教都同意的把我们的心的本性叫做法身法身就是佛的法身佛的三身之意。所以呢，我们的心的本心实际上它本来就是佛，所以叫做佛心。
This basic nature of our mind is described in the sutras as wisdom. It's also described as our Buddha nature. In the Tantras, the basic nature of mind is also sometimes called the natural mandala. This term, the natural mandala, in fact refers just to the basic nature of mind. Whether it be the sutric or the tantric traditions, indeed all of the Mahayana traditions in common also refer to the basic nature of mind as the Dharmakaya. So the Dharmakaya here refers to one of the three bodies of the Buddha. Since the basic nature of our mind is always the Buddha, therefore the basic nature is referred to as Buddha nature.
所以佛离我们有多远呢？可以说远在天边近在眼前因为佛释迦牟尼佛2500多年前就圆寂了然后呢，阿弥陀佛呢，在西方极乐世界离我们很远很远，所以我们感觉到佛远在天边但是真正的佛都在我们自己的内心当中，我们的心的本性就是佛，所以佛近在眼前。今天我们在座的每一个人，如果我们花一点点时间下一点功夫的话，我们每一个人都有机会能够见到这个佛的这个我们自己的心的本性的这个佛，就是我们每一个人都有机会见到佛的法身。
The distance between ourselves and the Buddha can be described as far away as the heavens and as close to us as right in front of our eyes. In terms of the Buddha being extremely far away from us, we can understand this insofar as the Shakyamuni Buddha himself passed away more than 2,500 years ago. As for the Amitabha Buddha, he resides in his Western Pure Land, which is very far away from where we are now. However, in terms of the real Buddha, our own basic nature, this is something that is extremely close to us. And everyone here tonight, so long as you are willing to spend some time and make some effort, has the opportunity to see this basic nature, to see the Dharmakaya.
所以从这个角度来讲，佛跟我们是没有距离的佛和我们永远都是没有距离，佛祖在心中， 实际上真正的意义也就是这样子，佛祖在心中，我们的理解是我们信佛永远都香佛就是岁念佛，我们一般是这样子理解。但是实际上呢，佛祖在心中，就是我们的心中有佛，有什么佛呢？就是有佛的法身那佛的法身才是真正的佛佛的法身，佛的化身和报身是佛的发神的形象他的形象，实际上真正的佛就是佛的法身那么佛的发身它不在外面，它永远都不会在外面，它就是我们的心的本性。所以我们有一天如果能够证悟的话，那我们就见到了真正的佛见到了真正的佛，真正的佛的法身。
So from this perspective, we can say that in fact there is no distance between ourselves and the Buddha. We often say that the Buddha is in the mind, or our Buddha is in our minds. Our conventional understanding of this saying is one thing. However, what this saying is really expressing is that the Buddha resides in our minds because the basic nature of our mind is the Buddha's Dharmakaya. The other two bodies of the Buddha are the real. Sorry, I just missed a part there. And this real, the Dharmakaya, in fact, exists nowhere else than in our own minds. This is where we will discover the real Buddha.
我们很多人通常到外面去寻找佛，我们很多人到印度去朝拜佛的这些圣地。但是实际上呢，这个我们的心的本心，它实际上才是真正的佛。如果要去要去寻找佛，那就是不要到外面去寻找佛，就到自己的内心当中去寻找佛这样子我们一定会找到真正的佛。如果到外面去寻找佛，那永远都找不到真正的佛这个在禅宗里面大摩祖师也讲得非常非常的清楚，然后密法里面呢特别的强调这一点所以我们平时我们去供佛像然后去朝拜佛，去朝拜这些佛的圣地，当然是可以的，有功德的有功德。如果有功德，它可以帮助我们证悟帮助我们见到我们自己的心的本性，这些都有帮助的。但是呢，真正的佛在自己的心里，所以我们到内心当中去寻找佛，这是这一生我们学佛的这个最终极的目标，也就是最正确的方法。就是如果想见到佛，那就要往我们的精神世界的深处去找，就能够找到佛。
Many people search for the Buddha in the external world, and in order to do this, they go to India and visit many pilgrimage sites, etc. However, our basic nature is the basic nature of our mind is in fact the real Buddha. And to search for this, or to find this, we shouldn't search in the external world. However, we should turn inside to our inner selves in order to find this real Buddha. It's not something that we will be able to locate on the outside. This is something that Bodhidharma in the Chan tradition expressed very clearly, and it's also a point that is very much emphasized in the Vajrayana tradition. So whilst making pilgrimages and revering such sites is meritorious, and indeed the merit that we accumulate in doing so can assist us in realizing our self-nature, the real Buddha is to be found in our own mind. And so this is our real goal as Buddhists, to turn inwards to our minds in order to locate this real Buddha.
好，这样子以后呢，我们现在知道了我们要去寻找佛，那就应该到什么地方去找，这个我们已经确定了，就是要到自己的内心当中去找佛，不要到外面去找这个确定了。那确定了以后呢，那我们怎么样去找寻找佛的方法是什么样子？这个时候我们就需要我们今天要讲的第二个佛心。
So having established where it is that we are able to locate the true Buddha, that is, having established that we can only locate the true Buddha in our minds and not in the external world, we now need to look at how it is that we go about discovering the true Buddha in our minds. This is something in respect of which we need methods. And so we are now going to move on to the second kind of Buddha nature.
好，第二个佛心叫做岁增佛行岁增是什么呢？增长就是随着我们的闻思修，这个佛心可以逐渐的增长，所以叫做岁增佛心。
So this second kind of Buddha nature is referred to as our evolving potential, or the Buddha nature that is to be developed or increased. And what this means is that this Buddha nature that is able to be increased will gradually evolve with our study, contemplation, and practice of the teachings.
岁增佛心是寻找内在的佛的方法。那么它的具体的方法就是三个字：闻思修。我们想找到内在的佛，我们想见到这个真正的佛的法身，那这样子的话，我们不能停留在这个烧香拜佛诵经磕头，然后参加各种各样的法会，各种各样的消灾延寿还有就是等等的这些法会这些法会我们可以参加，但是呢这些法会只能就解决一些暂时的问题但是根本就没有办法让我们见到真正的佛。所以呢我们如果真的想见到自己的内在的佛这样子的话，那我们就是要走这个闻思修这条路。
So this Buddha nature that is to be developed, or our inner potential, the method of developing this inner potential so that we can discover the true Buddha is that of listening, reflecting, and practicing or meditating. So in order to discover the Dhammakaya within us, we can't afford as Buddhists to simply rest at the level of practice of making incense offerings, reciting sutras, doing prostrations, attending Dharma assemblies of various kinds. Of course, these kinds of Dharma assemblies, we can take part in them. However, they will only be able to help us address temporary problems, they won't assist us at all in discovering the real Buddha. If this is something that we want to do, then the path we must follow is that of listening, reflecting, and meditating.
如果我们每一天能够花每一天的5%到10%的时间去寻找内在的佛这样子已经足够了就如果有更多的时间那当然是很好了，但是每天只有5%到10%这样子的时间，比如说每天打坐学习1个小时到2个小时那这样子的话，我们也就这一生当中非常非常有可能见到我们自己的心中的佛。
Every day, if we are able to allocate just 5% or 10% of our time to searching for our inner Buddha, then this is enough. Of course, if we're able to spend more time, then this is excellent. But even just allocating or dedicating 1 to 2 hours each day for meditation and study of the teachings, then by doing this, the chances of us in this life of discovering the Buddha in our own minds is very high.
我们现在很多的佛教徒我们所谓的学佛呢，就是生活当中遇到问题的时候去烧香拜佛求佛还有平时我们的大部分的这个功课都是烧香拜佛诵经除了这个以外，闻思修学习打坐这方面的功课是非常的少，所以呢我们就见不到真正的佛所以我们以后呢这个学佛的方法上面我觉得需要做一个调整我们可以烧香拜佛，有些时候呢想参加这些各种各样的法会，如果有时间，如果有这个兴趣，有必要的话，那也可以偶尔也可以参加但是呢我们经常都参加这些法会，然后不懂得学习，不懂得修心这样子真的是不是真正的学佛的方法。比如说我们观顶或者是举行一个某一种财神的这个法会这样子的话，就是人都是人山人海的，任何一个地方都是这样子。那如果讲经说法学习这样子的话，就每一个地方的人都不是很多的所以我们的学佛的方法错了那我们的学佛的方法错，所以我们这种学佛的方法呢，因为它是错误的方法，所以最终我们也得不到真正的结果所以希望大家以后呢，我们每一天就哪怕是花5%的时间，也可以5%一天的24小时的5%也可以在这样子的时间当中，应该有一个闻思修这样子的正确的学佛正确的这个修心。
For many Buddhists, the way that they go about practicing so-called Buddhism is when they encounter problems or difficulties in their life, they then make incense offerings and pray to the Buddha for intervention. So, of course, for many people then, their practice really is comprised of this, making offerings of incense, reciting sutras, etc., and studying, contemplating and meditating on the teachings forms relatively little of their approach to practice. However, if we are to attain the real Buddha, if we're able to experience the real Buddha, then it's necessary that we make changes to the way that we go about our practice of Buddhism. Of course, it's fine to make offerings to the Buddha. It's fine to attend Dharma assemblies occasionally. However, if we do this all the time, then this is really not a proper way of engaging in Buddhist practice. In general, when there are empowerments and initiations of different kinds, there is a huge number of people in attendance. However, when teachings are being given on the content of the Buddha Dharma, there are usually not so many people in attendance. So, in fact, our understanding of what the practice of Buddhism is mistaken. And because it's mistaken, this approach to practice will not lead to any real fruits. So if we're able to spend even 5% of each day on devoted to studying and contemplating and practicing the teachings, then this is a very proper and correct approach to practice.
正确的学佛每年一定会有很明显的进步，每一年都会有的好的修行人，最好的修行人，他们每一天都会有新的收获然后上等的修行人，中等的修行人不一定每一天都有收获，但是呢，每一个月都有新的进步和收获。然后最下等的最差的修行人只要自己努力的话每一年一定会有明显的进步他不一定每天有进步，也不一定每个月都有明显的进步，但是呢，每一年是一定会有进步的。所以我们要学佛的话，首先就是要闻思修就是要走这条路这样子我们每一个人都会有收获的。否则的话这个烧香拜佛诵经参加各种各样的法会，这种学佛最多也就积累一点福报而已这个福报我们下一世在投胎在转世的时候呢，在轮回当中有一点帮助仅此而已。这个功德不能让我们解脱不能让我们成佛，所以我们学佛就一定要走这个闻思修这条路，这条路才是正确的选择。
If we're able to devote ourselves to practicing in this way, then we will see results in our practice every single year. In terms of different calibers of practitioner, the best practitioners see results in their practice every day. More middling practitioners see results in their practice every month. The lowest caliber of practitioner might not see results every year or every month, but they will still certainly see very clear results in their practice every year. So in order to practice the Buddha's teachings, it's necessary that we take an approach that emphasizes listening, contemplating, and meditating. And by following this kind of approach, every single person will see results from their practice. If our approach to practice is that of making offerings and reciting sutras, attending Dharma assemblies, etc., this will enable us to accumulate some amount of merit. And this merit will be of some benefit to us in our next life and in cyclic existence. However, this merit in and of itself will not enable us to achieve liberation or attain Buddhahood. So if we are to attain Buddhahood, it's necessary that we follow an approach of listening, reflecting, and meditating. This is the proper choice to make.
闻就是听闻佛法听闻佛法，佛法有很多很多的佛法，佛法的这个量相当的大，就像藏传佛教的这个大藏经汉传佛教的大藏经，每一个 都有非常庞大的这个佛经啊，那我们如果要学这么多的话是没有办法学，所以就不需要学那么多，我们可以在这个当中选一部分的这个佛经来学习，比如说像这个大圆满的前心普贤上师言教还有就是类似于这样子的，比如说宗喀巴大师的菩提道次第广论，还有就是这个大般若波切的这个解脱庄严论等等，就是类似于这样子的一些佛经，这是一个精华浓缩版那这个里面呢有出离心，有菩提心，也有证悟空性的方法，我们就是选一个这样子的比较简单一点的佛经来学习，然后学习首先要去听，听就像我们今天这样子面对面，如果有这样子的机会的话，那就去听。还有就是我们可以通过网络也可以学习现在我们学习的这个条件比较成熟，比较方便网络也可以一样的学习。
So in terms of the first of this threefold formula, listening, this refers to listening to the teachings of the Buddha. And of course, in terms of the teachings of the Buddha, there is a vast amount of different teachings. In the Tibetan canon and the Chinese canon, the textual bodies are extremely vast. They're too vast for us to be able to read everything, and in fact we don't need to. It's fine if we select a few texts to use as the basis for our study. For example, one such text would be the words of my perfect teacher, or Tsongkhapa's The Graded Stages of the Path. So these are concise texts, succinct texts, and yet they cover renunciation, bodhicitta, methods for realizing emptiness. So we can choose simpler texts like these as the subject for our study of the teachings. And in terms of listening to the teachings, we need to hear the teachings. So, for example, if we have opportunities like tonight to attend a teaching like this, we can do that. Or otherwise, we can also listen to teachings on the internet. Fortunately, we exist in a time where the conditions for listening are quite good, so we can also study on the internet as well.
然后闻思就是思考佛教的教义，还有这些修行的方法思考平时自己可以思考，还有最好的方法呢，我们就学佛的人有些时候聚在一起，大家分享大家讨论这样子的话也是一个很好的一个思考思维的方法。
So, in terms of reflecting on the Buddhist teachings, this refers to contemplating the Buddhist doctrine as well as the methods of practice. This is something that we can do by ourselves, or we can otherwise gather together with our other Dharma friends and discuss the content of the teachings. This is also another good way to study them.
最后就是修行修行就是我们学佛的重点核心的部分就是修行。如果没有修行，那我们这个再多的烧香拜佛诵经磕头都不能减少我们的烦恼，更不能断除我们的烦恼。如果这些烦恼没有断除的话，那我们再有福报再积累功德也是不能解脱的只要有这些烦恼，那他们不会让我们解脱，所以必须要解决这些烦恼这个问题必须要解决。那唯一的一个解决的方法就是打坐修心培养证悟空性的智慧和菩提心，那这样子才能够把这些烦恼断掉。然后这些烦恼断掉了以后呢，然后就是因为没有什么力量 让我们扭转这个轮回。这个时候呢，我们会获得解脱所以修心是最重要的。所以我们今天在座的希望大家以后我们要养成一个习惯，每天除非是非常的忙，非常的特殊的情况以外，每天至少也有像半个小时、20分钟这样子的时间当中呢，静下来打坐这样子也就会，如果虽然每天的时间不是很多，但是如果一天的时间不是很多，但是如果每天这样子能够坚持的话，那就细水长流，最后一定有结果，这个非常的重要。
And the third of this threefold formula is practice or meditation. And this is really the core of Buddhist practice. For if we don't have this, if we lack this, then all of the offerings we might make, the recitations we might do, the prostrations we might make, will not be able to help us reduce our suffering and much less eliminate our suffering. And without eliminating our suffering, then regardless of how much merit we may have accumulated, it won't be possible for us to achieve liberation. So it's in terms of addressing our suffering and our affliction, the only way to do this is through meditation and through meditation by cultivating the wisdom of realizing emptiness and cultivating compassion. It is these things that will enable us to eliminate suffering and essentially render our afflictions without any power to keep us spinning in cyclic existence, and so therefore we will be able to achieve liberation. So meditation is really the most important thing in terms of our practice. So it's my great hope that every day for at least 20 minutes or 30 minutes that everyone is able to sit down quietly and meditate. This may not be a lot of time each day, but through persevering in over a period of time, it is certain that we will be able to see good results.
这三个不同的方法都让我们获得一些，都能够让我们获得一些新的智慧。闻思修，有闻所得的智慧和思所得的智慧，修所得的智慧，就三种智慧。然后这个三种智慧逐渐的增长增长了以后呢，我们的这个内心的这个体悟可以逐渐的靠近这个新的本心通过这个闻思修，我们对这个我们自己的新的本心的认识和这个体会就越来越深越来越深，最后我们的这个智慧闻思修的智慧，最后就可以体会彻底的了解到佛心佛心如来藏这个时候用禅宗的话来讲叫做明心见性大收音大圆满，这个时候就叫做证悟证悟心的本性。实际上明心见性证悟心的本性都是一个意思那这个时候呢，我们就已经达到了学佛的目标。
So each of these activities within this threefold formula enable us to generate different kinds of new wisdom. So there is wisdom associated with listening to the teachings, there is wisdom associated with reflecting on them, and there's also wisdom that is generated through meditating on the teachings. And as we engage in listening, reflecting, and meditating, our wisdom will gradually increase. And as it does, our mind's experience will become gradually closer to its basic, deepest nature. And ultimately, the wisdom generated by meditating will enable us to gain a complete experiential understanding of our Buddha nature. In the Chan tradition, this is described as realizing one's self-nature. In the Dzogchen tradition, this is described as realizing the basic nature of mind. In any case, achieving this is the ultimate goal of Buddhist practice.
证悟的方法有很多种，禅宗也有证悟的方法，密法也有证悟的方法，这个证悟的方法，最后证悟的时候呢，境界都是一样的境界，只不过就是暂时的这个方法上面稍微有一点点不一样而已。实际上最后达到了境界最终的时候呢，都这个密法和这个禅宗讲的境界都是基本上都是一样的。所以我们修行的时候呢，最好有一个次第，比如说像藏传佛教的四迦心和五迦心里面讲的一样，先修出离心，然后再修菩提心等等，然后最后就是去证悟空心这样子的话就比较这个次第比较清楚，然后比较规范对一个修行人来说，这个路是比较清楚的。
There are many different methods for realizing the basic nature of mind, whether it be in the methods in the Chan tradition or in the Tantric tradition. Ultimately, the awakened state of realizing the basic nature of mind is the same. So even though the methods for doing so do admit some differences, the final result or the final state, whether it be that as described in the Chan tradition or in the Vajrayana tradition, is essentially the same. So in terms of our practice, it's best if we can have a sequential program of practice. So for example, one in the Tibetan tradition which begins with the preliminary practices, and one where we follow a series of stages where we first cultivate renunciation, then generate bodhicitta, and then finally develop a correct view of the nature of emptiness. Working in a clear and sequential way like this has the advantage that the stages and the steps are known, they're clear, and for a practitioner it essentially means that the path of practice is something they are clear about.
证悟了以后呢，是不是证悟了以后就立即就成佛呢？还不是。证悟了以后呢，还不是立即成佛。证悟了以后要走的路还是很远的但是呢路虽然是很远，但是这个速度比现在快。我们还没有证悟的时候呢，我们的修行的速度不快，我们的进步不快。证悟了以后呢，虽然还不是成佛，离成佛还有一定的距离，但是呢，从此以后我们的修行的进步跟以前是不一样，可以快速的前进所以我们大家要抓住这个机会，我们每一个人都有就在这一生当中可以证悟，有这个机会那么我们每一个人稍微花一点时间去在这个闻思修这上面下一点功夫的话有可能每一个人都有可能证悟，在有生之年应该是可以证悟的。所以希望大家 从今以后在这个闻思修上面下功夫，我们从烧香拜佛从这个诵经磕头就转到闻思修上面就在闻思修上面下功夫，这样子我们一定会有收获的。
When we become awakened, when we realize the basic nature of mind, does this mean that we immediately attain Buddhahood? No, it doesn't. There is still a large distance between being awakened or having an experience of realization and attaining Buddhahood. However, the difference is that after we have gained an experience of realization, that the speed of our progress will be quicker than previously. So at the moment, our progress is not particularly fast. However, once we are awakened, then the distance that we still have to go is considerable, and yet our progress will be able to take place at an accelerated rate. Every person has the opportunity in this life to realize the basic nature of mind, so long as they invest a bit of time and effort in listening, contemplating, and practicing the teachings. Through doing so, it is certainly possible that everyone here may become awakened. So it's very much my hope that from now on, everyone puts effort into listening, reflecting, and meditating, and transforms their practice from one that focuses on making incense offerings, doing prostrations, and reciting sutras, to one that emphasizes listening, contemplating, and meditating. And if we do this, we're sure to get very sound results.
好，然后这个前行的这些修法，我们可以通过网络学习比如说在慧灯之光的网上面有详细的，我之前详细的讲过四前行的这个修法，非常详细的也就比较容易明白的，大家可以自己下载听学习。还有很多其他的其他的上师讲的也很多，也有这个视频和音频都有的大家可以通过网络学习。如果我们本地有佛教的中心或者是有寺庙有人讲，那这个就是最好的，面对面这样子去学习是最好的。实在是没有了那我们可以通过网络学习。
The preliminary practices are something that we can learn about via the internet. For example, on the internet at my Wisdom Light website, I have very clear teaching materials, learning materials on the 4 outer preliminaries, and these are something that everyone can download and study for themselves. There are also many other teachers too who have taught on the preliminaries, and their audio recordings and videos are also available. So if we have local Dharma centers or temples where it's possible for us to study face-to-face with a teacher in person, this is best. However, if our circumstances don't permit us to do this, then it is fine if we study via the internet.
好，然后我们需要一个传承修这个四加行和无加行的时候呢，需要一个传承这个四加行和无加行的仪轨呢，就是一个很方便的仪轨，以后我们修四加行无加行的时候就可以念这个仪轨。那这个仪轨的念诵的方法实际上是很简单的如果稍微有点不懂的话，有不懂的地方的话可以看这个慧灯之光第2本里面就详细的讲了这个仪轨怎么念 念诵的方法讲得很清楚，大家可以参考，可以看。
So to go about studying the 4 outer preliminaries and the 5 inner preliminaries, it's necessary that we have an oral transmission for a preliminary a liturgy. And so I'd like to give an oral transmission for such a liturgy now. It's a very convenient one that everyone can recite during their practice of the preliminaries. It's very straightforward, and if anyone has any questions nevertheless about how to go about reciting it, then I have explained this in the 2nd volume of the Wisdom Light book series.
好，我们最后做回向，我们今天的听经问法的功德回向分享给天下所有的众生，愿天下所有的众生幸福健康，很快就能够超越生死轮回，以这样子的法缘心愿来回向。
So we're just going to end now with a dedication of merit. In dedicating the merit that we have gained through listening to this teaching tonight, we do so with the aspiration that on the strength of this merit, all beings will achieve happiness and health and very quickly transcend the sufferings of cyclic existence.
Sonam de dancha zambanya domne ni be dana banshires jiga nanje walong zhe bai zhe bim zo len zhou a zhou er zhou om a hong ban zhen ge zhe ba ma se de hong Om a hom ban zeng ge re ba ma se de hong. Om a hom ban zeng ge re ba ma se de hong. 谢谢大家，阿弥陀佛。